Let's take a deep dive into some blessings. Hello everybody, I'm Roadblock and this is a Raid Shadow Legends video. I am excited about today's video because there's a lot of stuff to talk about, but I do want to put a couple disclaimers ahead of it. We're going to talk about blessings today, but I want to express these are my opinions. People have different opinions about what's good in this game, and I just want to emphasize right off the bat that these are my opinions. This is the way that my brain works, and feel free to let me know in the comments if you disagree so that I could maybe come back to this video later and be like, hey, some of you in the comments said this, and I think it makes a lot of sense, and it wasn't something that I considered. I'm not getting this from other areas. Now, admittedly, I may have read something like on Hell Hades' website about a certain blessing, and I'm making a choice. You know, I've made choices in the past based around that, but I'm not like, I didn't do a bunch of research and dig into some, you know, all the what everyone else says. These are just my opinions, and these are the ways that I use blessings on my account, and if anything, might give you an opportunity to have a point of view on blessings. It may not change your mind on how you use your blessings. You may think I'm an idiot, but at the very least, you can hear what other people think and how other people are using blessings. And I think that's very good for a lot of players. As I've been doing lately, I've been making a lot of content for newer players, and this will, I think, at least be very helpful for newer players to kind of say, oh, I didn't think about that when it came to blessing. So we're going to get started here. Listen up. I just got a new promo link that you can use to follow along with me on my latest free-to-play adventure and get a free Elenaril as well as 3 more powerful epics as you level up. Here's how to do it. Log out of Play and Play and uninstall. Click the link in the description and register with a brand new email. Launch Raid and complete the tutorial. Go to your inbox and claim your first champ. Don't miss out on your chance to get Elenaril right after signing up, as well as Fayne, Uugo, and Tagoar as you progress through Raid. Click on my link right now and let's crush this together. I'm going to try to, I don't want this video to be too long. I am going to try and put a time limit on it around 25 minutes at max. So this might be a 2-parter, maybe even a 3-parter, depending on how many blessings we want to go through. But we'll take a look and we'll talk about a couple of them. It's been on my mind for a minute and we can kind of just take a look and really kind of dive into it. So you know what? Why don't we go ahead and start with Intimidating Presence, because this is a blessing that I have seen, I would argue, underutilized in live arena, or maybe I'm overutilizing it, but it's very beneficial to me, somebody that doesn't have as high of speeds as I feel like my opponents might have. So let's talk first about what the blessing does. So the blessing strengthens your team's aura and weakens the enemy team's aura. And then multiple champions, it doesn't work. Same with Commanding Presence. So strengthens your team's aura and weakens the enemy team's aura. Second part is extremely important, and I think people forget about that. If we come down here, it talks about how much it strengthens your aura by and how much it weakens the enemy's by. And you can see I've got it on my Lady Mikage, and we'll talk about that in a second, but it strengthens my aura by 35% and weakens the enemy aura by 20% at this max level. And I really want to emphasize that second part, because if you're in a situation where you're drafting and you're probably wondering, why is this on his Lady Mikage and not Polymorph or something? Polymorph isn't as much of a concern for me because I have other ways kind of around it, whether it's the new gear set, Pinpoint, right? So Pinpoint can kind of get around it with the Intercept, and then, or the Feral set, with the Feral set completely making you immune to Polymorph. So Polymorph isn't a big concern for me, just being honest. Also, it's even less of a concern for me these days when I've got Wand of Submission as well. Like, Polymorph really doesn't inhibit me a lot, but losing the speed battle does. So when we talk about Intimidating Presence, the reason I have it on my Lady Mikage is that she's one of only 3 champions I have on my entire account who have a full 6-star blessing. I've got Tila, I've got Harima, and I've got Lady Mikage, okay? And I don't even use Tila anywhere. So those are the only 3 champions I have with full 6-star blessings, which means that I get that full benefit of Intimidating Presence. Now this uses whoever has the highest one. So it'll use whoever has the highest intimidating presence, not just who the leader is. At least that's what I'm led to believe. So when I draft, I usually draft like Armand's, who has intimidating presence, Arbiter, who has intimidating presence, and Lady Mikage. Now, I'm not telling you to change your blessings if you want polymorph more. Like, do what's best for your account. For my account, speed is a big part of what I'm going for in live arena, at least right now, because I don't have stone skin, or as much stone skin as I would like. I don't have as much other gear components. I don't have as much speed. So I have to find ways to make up for that. And what I have found is that other teams only usually run one champion with intimidating presence, and that's usually who I ban, which means that my aura gets increased by 35% if that's Arbiter or Armand's aura, and it weakens the enemy aura by 20%. So they could still have an Armand's or a Fabian, but I'm weakening their aura by a significant percentage and obviously strengthening mine. So they could be a lot faster than me, but the aura is going to make up for that. And so that's one of the approaches that I take with intimidating presence. And I think a lot of people maybe just thought of this as like, oh, this is just better commanding presence, but it's really, really valuable. And Mikage doesn't get banned very often on my team, and she's also quite fast for my account. Again, this is for my account. She's 353 speed. I think my fastest champion is in the 370s, and it's just proven to be very, very useful for me. I've been winning a lot of speed battles, and when you're running champions, what is he? He is 371 speed, yeah. But winning speed battles is very important for me, especially with Commodus, because I can get Commodus in there and either lock them out if I feel like that's more important, or just bomb them and annihilate them. Same thing with Mezamel, Empress even, right? So the whole point that I'm really trying to get home is that intimidating presence is good if used in the right way. And I would further emphasize that this will be good for other champions as well. If you're talking about PvE perspective, your champions who are bringing your auras, we just filter by auras really quickly. So your speed aura champions like your Duchess, a pretty reasonable one because you're going to get faster, right? You can see on a lot of my champions where I have speed auras, I tend to be using that particular blessing because I want my team stronger. There are some situations where I don't use it, particularly for White Queen and Korra, where I've used Harmonic Impulse. Because that's the team that she was on would get feared a lot, and I had to worry about that with her, but I don't really have to worry about it with I don't use Ancora much anymore. Elva, well, she usually places Perfect Veil on herself with the way my teams are built, so I usually don't have to worry about her ever getting feared, and then she can just cleanse everybody's off. But, you know, that's maybe a video for another time, so I run Intimidating Presence on her instead of that Harmonic Impulse. But, yeah, that's kind of the idea behind that particular blessing, and I want people to just understand that, you know, if you're running it with a speed aura, it's good, but even if you're not, you know, if you have somebody that's not going to get banned, would 6-star polymorph be better? Maybe, but I haven't found enough consistency. I had her in 6-star polymorph before, and I wasn't getting that consistency. So furthermore, I also run Lady Mikage in a lot of PvE content. Again, her having the highest intimidating presence blessing, even if I'm bringing an Elva or something like that, she will boost that aura to its maximum effect and get me a lot more speed for my team in Hydra and other areas of the game. Yeah, very, very big fan of intimidating presence. I kind of wanted to talk about that. So now we're going to kind of talk about two, because I think they are kind of interchangeable and kind of comparable, okay? So we have Soul Reap, and the other one I want to compare it to is going to be Crushing Rend. Now, here's something that I see a lot of players do, and I'm going to tell you that I don't advise this. I don't think this is a good idea to do. I see a lot of players run Crushing Rend below 5-star. Now, you'll notice that the only champions... Oh, I guess I do have a couple epics that are 6-star ascended. I forgot about the epic. So, like, my Seer, my Phenax are running Crushing Rend, and then I have my Harima running Crushing Rend. And the reason is, well, let's review it really quickly and we'll talk about why. Each round, a number of this champion's hits will ignore a percentage of the target's defense. For the percentage of ignored defense depends on the level of the target. So at 6 stars, every hit will ignore a percentage of the target's defense. Will ignore 1% defense for every 10 levels. So this is an additional 6% ignore defense against PvP champions, but in PvE, this is a lot. of ignore defense. This is a big deal. At 5-star, it's only the first 2 hits, and then at 3 stars or 4 stars, or actually probably all the way down, sorry, it's only the first hit. That's a really big deal, and I really want to emphasize the value of crushing rend at 6-star versus 5-star. So first of all, let's just talk about the fact that the first 2 hits will ignore a percentage of the target's defense, 1% of defense for every 25 levels. So that's 2% defense ignore at a 5-star ranking in PvP setting, and it's still, and only for 2 hits, and then you have 0 effect coming in on your champion whatsoever. Where here for the 6-star, you're getting that 6% ignore defense, and it's applying to every single hit in the fight. It's so much better at 6 stars, and arguably kind of useless at 5 stars or below, which is why I don't run Crushing Rend on any champion that doesn't have a 6-star Ascended Blessing. You may think like, well, my first 2 hits are gonna be monsters, I want to ignore that percentage of defense, and I understand that, but it's such a small amount in PvP, and then in PvE where it's a much larger amount, I just still don't think it's worthwhile. Now, in comparison, I am a big fan of Soul Reap, and I wanted to talk about Soul Reap a little bit here. So, when this champion hits an enemy target and decreases their HP to a certain threshold, a Reaper will appear and deal extra damage equal to the target's remaining HP. I won't go into all the detail about what it does, but essentially, if you get somebody to within a certain threshold, death basically shows up and swipes at them with a scythe, okay? So, when you're looking at like a 3-star blessing or a 5-star blessing, 4%, or sorry, so 3 stars 8%, 5-star is 14%. That is a big chunk of damage if you really consider it. Like, we pick War Master on a lot of our PvE damage dealer champions because we're doing percentage damage against bosses, and that's only 3% of their HP, and a lot of that gets nerfed anyways through different features that bosses have these days. This comes in really handy in PvE, and I think a lot of people sleep on that. I slept on it for a really long time until somebody told me to make a change, and we'll show you the champion that I made that change on. But I wanted to talk first comparing this to Crushing Rend. So Crushing Rend in a PvP setting, we're ignoring, let's say it's 5-star, we're ignoring 2 extra percent, where in this case, we only need to get them down to 86% of their life, and then they will get killed. That's pretty good, right? You only need to do 86% damage. When you're talking about nukers who a lot have built-in ignore defense, you've got them in Savage, and you've probably built them to be really hard hitting anyways and can probably do 100% in most cases, you know, barring any mitigation and stuff. This kind of comes in pretty handy as just like the, oh man, that guy's built his champion really high HP or really tanky, or you know, they've got damage reduction or all kinds, you know, strengthens up or something like that. You can usually still get the kill off, and it can be very valuable. And so you'll see that for a lot of my nukers that are not 5-star blessing, that's what I'm running them. I'm running a lot of them in Soul Reap. Now, there are differing opinions here, and I know that a lot of people are going to say, oh, well, you should be using like Nature's Wrath or Heaven Cast, right? That's another big one that you could use potentially. All depends on what you're looking for. If you're looking for wave clear and you're looking for PvP, I like Soul Reap better. That's just my opinion. Where Heaven Cast or long fight, where you want to get more increased damage over a long period of time, I might use something like Cast. But it's personal preference. Like I said at the beginning of the video, please, you know, consider what's best for your account and play around with them. Yeah, it costs some gems. I know gems are really hard to get for a lot of players, but you know, you can test some stuff out, see how you like it, maybe test it on a different champion first, one that you don't use, and just say, oh, you know, I wonder what it looks like with Heaven Cast or something. I don't know. It's kind of frustrating to constantly change your blessings. I wish they didn't implement that, but you know, it is what it is. So overall though, I really like Soul Reap, and there's one other thing about Soul Reap that I want to talk about that's really good, and that someone had to tell me about, and I've never looked back, and that's putting Soul Reap on an enemy max HP champion like Newt. In fact, just thinking about it, almost makes me want to put it on my Acrizia. So let's talk about for a second why putting it on somebody like a Newt is really, really valuable. So putting it on Newt means that because I have a 2-star blessing, I get to kill the boss at 96% damage. And that comes in really handy when you're using an enemy max HP nuker, maybe did get them to that very end of their HP, and you don't maybe want them to get another turn. So Soul Reap can come in very handy on a champion like Newt. Now, for that, on Newt, I was using Brimstone, and that's going to be the last blessing that we talk about. Brimstone, the problem that I have with Brimstone is a couple of different things. So let's read what Brimstone does very quickly, and then I can talk about why I find Soul Reap to be much more effective in certain situations. When this champion attacks, each hit has a chance to place a smite debuff for 2 turns. This, by the way, is on a 4-turn cooldown, something that I don't think a lot of players know because I didn't know it. Champions under the smite debuff will be hit by a meteorite when they use an active skill. The meteorite inflicts damage equal to 20% of the affected champion's max HP and will also inflict damage to all other enemy champions equal to 5% of their max HP. Only 1 smite debuff can be act per team at any point. And then obviously we have the different percentages and whether or not you need accuracy. So you need accuracy for all smite debuffs below level 6, and it's only protected at 5 or higher, meaning it can cleansed away. Let's talk about why smite can be a problem. Now, mainly Hydra. If you have a champion that you're using focusing in Hydra, there are a couple issues come along with the smite debuff. 1, it has a cooldown. 2, it can only be on 1 head at a time. And 3, a lot of the head don't use their active skills if you were using the appropriate mechanism to get around it, right? If you're provoking the head that can be provoked, they're only using an A1. Therefore, smite Brimstone won't go off on that head. Likewise, I think Head of Blight does use its different abilities quite frequently, but remember that you might not even be able to guarantee a Brimstone proc on the right target. You may be in a position where you don't want to attack the Head of Blight for whatever reason. Bad affinity, maybe it has a buff on it, right, where you can't do any damage to it. Maybe it's under a poison cloud effect and you don't want to weak hit it. In fact, if you weak hit it, it would only land if you had the 6-star blessing anyways, right? So, you know, there are issues of getting it to land and be effective on the Head of Blight, right? Head of Suffering is the best champion to land it on, arguably the only really good one. And why is Head of Suffering so good to land? Because he gets an extra turn mechanic here. So you would actually land 2 smites if you have it on him and these are off cooldown. But then you run into the issue that these could be on cooldown. And if they're on cooldown, it's going to A1. None of that is going to happen and you're not going to get a smite proc and you're going to have to wait 4 turns before you can apply another one if it's only on 1 champion. Head of Mischief often, actually I think Head of Mischief only A1s and then only applies the buff spread if it has buffs to spread. So I think it'll A1, and if it doesn't have any buffs, I think it'll just A1 again instead of trying to do a spread for buffs that it doesn't have, right? So this A1's a bunch and wouldn't proc a smite. Head of Torment, again, it only has 1 active skill outside of its A1. So sure, if it uses the A1, you'll get 1 proc off of your smite, but then you're probably not going to get any more procs off of it. And again, cooldown, right? I think you guys get where I'm going with this. And same thing, 1 active skill and then an A1. So really, you're just not going to get that much of an effect out of something like Smite for Hydra specific champions. Now, where is it really good? Where is Smite really good? Regular Demon Lord clan boss, it's really good. Chimera, there are bosses that it's good against. Same thing with Doom Tower bosses. Smite can come in, Brimstone can come in very, very handy in regular bosses, dungeon bosses, things like that. I understand, but if you have champions who are primarily being used as damage dealers spoilers for you, Hydra, you might want to consider not using Brimstone. This was a mistake I made for a very long time until I finally got told by clanmates and people in the community, hey, why don't you try not using Brimstone? And I was like, okay, fine, I'll try not using Brimstone. And I was so pleasantly surprised with that change. And one of those champions that I changed it on was my Newt, because being able to get a boss kill 3%, was it 4%, sorry, 4% earlier actually comes in handy very often with this champion. And remember that that proc off of a lot of different stuff. Like it can proc off, like maybe I'd get him to 5% with this, but then I A1 a turn later, or an ally attack A1, and oh yeah, now Soul Reap proc, you know, I don't give the opportunity for that boss to get another turn. And it comes in a lot, in particular with my Iron Twins team that I run too, because the boss will get low and it will usually get scythed away by a Reaper and prevent them from doing one more turn, which might wipe me, because this is a really fast and loose team that I run right now. So I don't make a video on it. I think I've actually made a video before, but I'm afraid to make a video of it now because I am running double Newt Acrizia, and people are gonna be like, okay, you're ridiculous, dude, right? I don't have any of those champs, let alone a double Newt. So that's why I don't talk about that too much. I do hope, guys, that this has maybe given you some insight into different ways to use blessings. I'm gonna make a follow-up on this, so let me know in the comments your thoughts, or let me know about questions about other blessings or things that you want me to talk about when it comes to blessings, because I feel like there isn't a lot of information out there about, like, you know, pros and cons. I mean, there is information out there, like Hell Hades, they give you a recommended blessing for champions. I highly recommend you check that out. But there's definitely things to consider when you're considering your blessings, and we've only begun to scratch the surface when it comes to a lot of these blessings. And I would love to talk about this even more, and maybe even go more in depth into polymorph as well, and why I don't use it a lot on a lot of champions, especially now. You know what? We'll save it for the video. So, spoiler here about where I was going with that. So, all right, guys, we will call that a video. I just want to say thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this content. I was very excited to make it, and I really enjoyed making it. That was a fun one for me. So, let me know what you guys thought in the comments, and if you're new here, please consider subscribing. But as always, I look forward to seeing you all in the next video. Take care.